Hello.
Hello.
Oh, dope.
Nice.
Hi, guys.
Are you saying hi to people listening? Yeah.
One second. Ah, yes, we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yep.
Yes, yes.
Dope. Let's begin. Okay. Put pressure on me. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, lah. So basically, what we're going to talk about today is very clear. Yesterday, we had a, a shock introduction of a stimulus package by the government. It's a shock because usually a neoliberal government will not introduce something so drastic, but they did. I mean, they said it was 250 billion, but the fiscal expenditure is 25 billion. But the other like loan deferments or added together, the value is up to 250 billion lah. So I guess we can start discussing about it first lah. So I guess it's I think it's not a shock that there's a stimulus package coming in at this moment because because I work in a global supply chain and globally everybody is suffering lah. It's a very difficult time for everyone at the moment. So if there's no injection, cash injection by the government into the economy, there's a very high chance our economy will collapse, and that's especially true because we are a trade economy. We rely a lot on import exports. So that is one side where it's not surprising. But what is surprising is that the narrative that has always been played, not just by the current government or the current people in the government, but also in the previous government, is that we don't have as much money to spend. But clearly we do lah. Although opponents have said it's only 25 billion, I think the loan deferment alone is about 100 billion ringgit value, and a lot of banks are actually GLCs, and I think cash flow within the non-rakyat sector, which is the private sector and also the government sector, is heavily reduced, and I think that is quite commendable, I would say. But as far as yeah, yeah.
No, I wouldn't say that I was shocked by the announcement because the under the PH government they have also announced a series of stimulus package in the month of February. So for me, having seen the developments of COVID-19, I do actually. I mean, I expected the government to take more drastic measures compared to what the PH government has done in the month of February, lah. So in terms of like the amount of money that they were pumped into the stimulus through the stimulus package into the economy, I expected that to be more, lah. Right.
Yeah,
What was
actually,
it
I've been
about?
receiving it for a few afternoons. MKN.
No.
No, I don't think I clicked on the link uh, to access it. How about you, Michelle?
I didn't receive the SMS.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not Malaysian, huh? I don't need bantuan or something like that.
Would you like to take this first, Michelle?
Wait, can you repeat the question? That is, I think, a good point of discussion. That I personally am not too sure how much B40, how much of the B40 group are actually aware of these benefits. And given that most of our government agencies are not open because of over the MCO period, including MP offices and ADUN offices, right? I myself am wondering how B40 is going to know about this lah. And well, I'm hoping that through SMS they would find out a bit more about this Prihatin stimulus package. Oh, really? Like you or wait? Hold on. Can I hear that you or can I hear?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can.
On the live stream. Can
Hey,
you check?
wait.
Yeah.
I'll have to mute myself.
So that's pretty awkward, right? I've been saying jokes and people are just laughing randomly on like of nothing. Okay, can you hear me?
Can you repeat?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
1 second, checking.
I don't think they can hear you.
Yes, can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can hear
Can I?
you.
Okay.
Alright. Okay. Yay! Man, do I have to repeat the question again?
Repeat the jokes, lah. I think people miss it, basically.
Okay, yeah. So basically we were just talking about how I received a text message from government today afternoon, and the text message sent a link to me trying to explain what the Prihatin Bantuan Nasional package is lah. So my question to Arveent and Michelle didn't receive the text because I don't think she was Malaysian, but my question to them was basically, it's all fine and well that let's say people like us, we can access, we look at our internet all the time and then we know that this package has been announced and we know what benefits the P40 has, the M40 has, the SMEs, and then the PTPN loans and all that, but is this information accessible to the layperson as well, like those from the B40? Is there a way in which we could make this information more accessible to them?
It's a good question. I think insofar as getting SMS is concerned, a lot of P40 do have access to it, but I think there needs to be a lot more direct government communication lah, either through television, to radio, or even through going to the area and trying to disseminate this information. But there is a risk lah, of course, of increasing the spread of COVID-19 when you're going to communicate this. But there are certain sectors that I fear are high risk. For example, refugees and undocumented migrants. Though that group is quite a risk factor. PPR residents, that group is a risk factor. Homeless people, that group is a risk factor. So all of these high risk individuals need to be addressed in a specific manner so that the information is brought to them lah. I think, for example, there are food security initiatives that take into consideration the homeless people as well, and if they don't know this, they don't get the food lah. So I guess what the government doing now covers a lot of people, a high majority, but there are certain minorities that need to be taken into consideration.
But I would like to point out, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Refugees and undocumented migrants are not covered under the Prihatin scheme. Am I right?
Yeah, Arveent.
So how then is this applicable to them? Because technically they fall outside of the system. Yeah.
Good question.
I feel like Never mind, you go on first.
No,
I guess
but
that's a weakness,
wait.
lah.
Sorry, you were saying? Yeah.
No, that's a weakness, lah. I agree with Michelle.
And I just feel like, in light of this MCO period, right, there's a heavy reliance on what NGOs can do, and also like personal donations from the public that refugees and undocumented migrants are getting. So they are not getting aid from the system, but they are getting aid from individuals who have donated to them. So, I mean, on the long run, I do not think that this is sustainable. If we are talking about, MCO being extended for another, say, 2 weeks.
Do you think it will be extended?
Oh, going on a different tangent now. Arveent, what do you think?
Difficult to say. Looking at the trends from other countries, there's a high possibility that it might be extended. But I hope not, lah.
I mean, we got to pay attention to the number of cases that we get every day, right? I mean, flattening the curve is, where we are hoping to get next is to actually see the curve flatten. And so far, few days back, we have gotten about 200 cases, which is like
I think yesterday
a
was about
spike in the
130,
graph.
right? Then the day before was
Yeah.
it was quite high, about
200.
more than 212 last time was the highest,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So I think at this rate, we have still yet to see the graph actually going into a plateau. I think once we see that, maybe we could relax a bit on.
Then again, it's also testing, right? Like, let's say if I test a bunch of people today, but I only released positive results now, and then there's a bunch of testing that still needs to be done in the rest of the evening. So actually, maybe today there might be a spike, but there might be a drop the next day, because you have to average it out, I suppose. Because there'll be like days which there'll be a huge spike, days which will be less of a spike. So then the actual number in which you are getting between those 2 days, you have to average it out. So I don't think it's actually a good measure to see whether it's dropping or not. It's hard to tell.
But what we can do is actually look at how long other countries have been taking, or rather, what is the period of their MCO line in their respective countries. I think on average is 56 days. Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong. 56 or 60.
I think China
took how long?
I think China was around there, lah, about 56 days or 60 days, something like that, basically.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let's just go into the apparently 250 billion economic stimulus package. What were your first impressions, reading off the benefits that were listed by the Prime Minister in his speech and all that?
I actually misread it. I thought it was 250 billion of fiscal stimulus, which would be unprecedented. That's almost as big as our what do you call that? Whole country's budget for a year.
I think it's much more.
Yeah,
Much
and
more than
then,
the 2020 budget, which was about
Exactly.
173 billion.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So as I read more, it started to make more sense, lah. Because if 250 billion was spent fiscally, I don't think our reserves can actually handle it, and I don't think this is the correct time to do it as well. But the cash handouts, they are okay. 1,006 to people, to households that get under 4,000 ringgit a month. 1,000 to under between 4,000 and 8,000, and a few others, lah. I think that part is good, but it's not sustainable. I think nobody is expecting it to be sustainable, to sustain the lives of people for another 6 months, for example. So that's what I'm saying. When I read through it, it kind of made more sense, and then I expect there will be more stimulus packages in the future, lah. Especially post-COVID would be a very important time for stimulus packages.
So there was mention about how the stimulus package didn't really address job security. I think it was mentioned by Wong Shen and all that. So Michelle, do you have any input on that? Hello?
Sorry, a bit choppy on my end. Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, so
Sorry.
there's been talk about how the stimulus package didn't really address job security, which was some people have argued is the more important thing when it came to the MCO at the moment. So I think this was brought up by Wong Chen and all that. And do you have anything to any input on that, Michelle?
Yeah, well, looking at the budget, there's only, I think the PM did announce that, wait, let me just go to the point quickly. They announced that RM 600 ringgit per month will be given out for workers who are earning below the amount of 4,000 ringgit, right? But there's a caveat there is that the companies that they're working for must have experienced an income drop of more than 50% since January 1st, right? I think from that point alone, I feel that it's now very narrow. I mean, the group of people that we're talking about is quite narrow. What about those whose companies are actually not experiencing income drop of more than 50%? Don't they get this aid from the government as well?
Should they?
Sorry?
Sorry. Yeah. Should they have introduced a lower bracket, meaning lower than 4,000, even? You know.
I guess it's just,
But
you
they
just
just might be going by the P40 metric and all that, right?
yeah, it could
Yeah.
be, it could be. But we must not forget also that there are groups within the M40 which are just maybe a disaster away or another extension of MCO away from falling into the B40 group. Yeah, so I think from that end, I would agree with Wong Chen that there isn't much. I mean, the government could have covered more in terms of protecting jobs, making sure people retain their jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I read that and I thought it was quite narrow as well. But I think this one addresses the very real, reality of certain companies experiencing a massive drop in income. But again, as I said, this doesn't cover. This is not the final stimulus package. In my opinion, there'll be more. That will hopefully cover a lot more things that the government a lot more impacts that the government is now waiting to happen essentially. And I agree with Michelle. There are a lot of people in the M40 group that are just a disaster away from falling into the B40 group, or even falling even below poverty line. So that reality is still there. Yeah, lah, that's what I'm saying. But again, for me, COVID-19 is a temporary period. The disease will be fought back, and will be fought back in a period of months. But after COVID-19, the recovery period, that is the most important thing. That's where government expenditure needs to really come in.